Just to comment on what's been said there.
Amendment 1 to 18.
Sorry?
Amendment 1 to 18.
No, just to comment on what's been said about, and I won't repeat the adjectives he used, but I think the Deputy will find in his objections to this bill that An Taisce are probably some of his best friends. They have said and warned that the bill is part of a growing European and British trend intentionally rolling back on democratic legal norms. And Minister, I'd like to ask you, and maybe you could say this in your response, did the Attorney General Rossa Fanning privately tell the government that this bill gave the appearance of being led by developers? And if he did, I think he should say that to the House, because for many of us it looks like a developer-led bill, the third largest bill in the history of the state, and being rushed through tonight. It's extraordinary and it's disgraceful. Powers are being given that are centralised, given to government and ministers to make variations to development plans that, as has been said, are put together by local authority democratically elected councillors. And those local development plans, progressive moves in them can be blocked. Initiatives in them, in each local development plan, can be blocked by government and or a minister. And some of this bill's harshest critics are not exactly your eco-warriors or your tree huggers, as they're often denigrated and called, but they are people like the Law Society of Ireland, the Bar Association, the United Nations House Compliance Committee, the Irish Planning Institute. And I want to just say that this bill now includes last-minute amendments that we probably won't get to because of the guillotine on it, but these amendments are absolutely disgraceful. And if passed this evening, it will mean that LNG planning applications will be fast through the planning process. And it does say everything about the Green Party in government with yourselves and Fine Gael over the last 4 years, if this government ends with them trying to ram through laws to enable new fossil fuel infrastructure, and which flows from the government's energy review last November. And that review made clear that the government's main concern is to ensure an even greater energy supply for continued unlimited growth of energy-hungry data centres, and essentially their needs are being prioritised over the more important goals we should have of decarbonisation and reducing our energy usage. So in all of that, I just want to mention in 2021, we put a bill, I introduced it before the House, the Planning and Development Climate Emergency Measures Act, an amendment to the bill in 2021, and all of the Green deputies voted against it. And all of them said that it was a distraction and that LNGs would never be introduced. And now, even at this late stage, we would call on the Green Party to change their course and to vote against this entire bill. And even if it comes to triggering a general election, which everybody knows is around the corner anyway, they should let the people decide on something that is crucial for our future and make it an election issue. The years of greenwashing, the years of ramming through fancy ads and trying to convince us that LNGs would not be brought in are now coming to an end. And research published last week in the Science and Energy Journal shows us that LNG energy is much, much worse than coal because it traps heat in the atmosphere 80 times more than carbon dioxide. And if it does that, it's no wonder that we're witnessing the worst hurricanes on record in America, the worst floods on record across Europe, and indeed the worst and hottest days ever. So I just want to finish my meagre contribution by quoting from an article that was published in The Ditch, which I know your party loves, and it was written by a very eminent environmentalist, Sinead Mercier, and she says, despite all the climate pronouncements, expensive ad campaigns and new climate legislation, the government is setting in train the largest amount of high carbon infrastructure ever built in the history of the state. This bill exposes an unpleasant state philosophy. As Ireland can no longer fully rely on its low tax rate to attract international finance, it has intensified an existing parallel strategy, offering up the country's infrastructure and landscape for global value extraction. If disagreement over a bank bailout is worth collapsing a government over, surely the same standards apply to bailing out the fossil fuel industry. This government, in its final days with an election imminent, there's little to be lost and all to be gained from blocking this intolerable legislation.